Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining Seattle Intergroup's discussion on Tradition 8. We're here, the Seattle group is actually sponsoring the tradition study this whole year. So hopefully, if you haven't tuned in, the whole traditions 1 through 7 are on our YouTube channel. And after tonight, Tradition 8, and then through the rest of the year, we'll do the rest of the traditions, one a month until the end of the year. And I was just talking about how next year we're going to be doing the 12 concepts. So we're looking forward to that. But tonight we have quite a few people in attendance, which I'm really excited about. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephen.
Thank you, Lara. My name's Steve, alcoholic, and happy birthday, Lara.
Oh, happy birthday, Stephen.
Um, okay, tradition 8. The format's gonna be just a tiny bit different tonight. I'm just going to talk for a couple minutes and then maybe come back in later to get us started. So, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. So I'm not going to read any more than that right now. I just want to talk about what it's come to mean to me. And I don't see how tradition 8 is possible without tradition 7, because in tradition 7, we state that we're going to support the various expenses that we have as Alcoholics Anonymous. And so, um, if we're going to have committees and service centers and workers, I think we're from tradition 7, we're obligated to support them, to support the institutions. And um, many times in the years I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous, when somebody in my home group dared to say something like to talk about money and like intergroup is running in the red. The area doesn't have enough money. GSO doesn't have enough money, and all that. It just kind of went in one ear and out the other because I put my buck in. Um, and so then the rest of it became somebody else's problem. And then I found out something now a few years ago. I didn't know. I just didn't know that people sometimes became monthly contributors to different parts of Alcoholics Anonymous, like intergroup. So I became one because I believe in tradition 7 that we should support that which supports us. And I I wasn't alone in just not thinking about, are we supporting the very facets of Alcoholics Anonymous that we create. It just never, it was just like somebody else's problem. And so often with tradition 8, there's a lot of talk about what's professional, what's not professional. What often isn't talked about is, and it says it in the 12 and 12 in the long form, they have this 2-word phrase called well recompensed.
Right.
And I always thought in AA, like if the church basement that we were renting out or something dared ask for more money, it's just how can we always get things the very cheapest. So the thought of how much can we contribute to the church or to other facets of AA, I think that comes with, I think it comes with recovery from alcoholism, just the self-centeredness and whatnot. Um, I haven't heard basically forever that we should hire professional counselors like all of tradition 8 talks against doing, or any of that. It's a very well written tradition, and now that we're getting up to 100 years old, and what we've done works, but what can we do better? And if we claim to embrace the 7th tradition, there's so many ways I found that as an individual member of Alcoholics Anonymous and a member of a home group and district, that we can do a better job. And so, do we even need the non-professional? Do we need to stay non-professional? I don't think anybody argues that we shouldn't. And do we need to employ special workers at our service centers and various facilities that cost money? Of course we do. But are we supporting them, and are we, in the spirit of the tradition, are they well recompensed? And from that, we can get into the discussion, which they talk about not only in this step, but for sure in this tradition, about money and spirituality and how well they mix. And that's supposed to come across sarcastically. And so I've been part of, mostly listening to people that are know way more about this than me, and it's fascinating, the different points of view there are about generously funding the very centers that we create, and they were there for us, versus this tightwad mentality, which I would have never called it that, because it sounds kind of creepy. But I always thought, like, it's better if it costs less. It's better if they work for less. It's better. Less money is better for AA. And I don't feel like that anymore. Any rate, so the tradition itself, we should remain forever non-professional. And it doesn't seem like we're in any danger of that part of the tradition being violated. But boy, it must be tough at times, for the very organizations that we, as members of Alcoholics Anonymous, created, and then we don't support through funding to do the job that we asked them to do when we created the center or the positions. So I'm paying more attention to it than I ever have before. And this tradition has been very helpful to me in that way. Okay, there's my real short talk. So Lara said that she would share with us.
Well, I can, but I asked Scott to be my presenter. And so Scott is here.
Scott, thank
Yeah.
you.
Hey guys,
Hey, Scott.
good AA fashion. I got railroaded by by someone who didn't feel equipped to talk about this. So the good thing is, a half hour ago, I did some reading. So sometimes that's the only way I will read, is under the gun. So yeah, in reading this and reading some other stuff in what is it? What other book was I reading out of? AA Comes of Age. Okay. I've read these books, but I obviously didn't submit all of them to memory, which is good, because then you can read them again. Anyways, in reading this, it makes me glad I'm sober now and not when AA started, because it's just totally insane, everything, all the fighting about money. Of course, we still fight about money all the time. But back then, trying to figure these things out, and alcoholics are such, I feel like it could just be everybody, but it feels like alcoholics are cheapskates. They want to not have to pay for anything. They want everything to be for free. And there has to be a line. There has to be a line somewhere between, like with Seattle Intergroup is a good example. There's a need for it. And the people that are there running it should be paid like any other job at a fair wage. But and when you read what they went through, trying to figure that stuff out, man, they're practically trying to get everybody to do it for free. And of course, who wants to show up every day for free? Nobody does. And so finding a balance in there, and of course the history of Bill W. You know, he wanted to start a hospital. Of course, he wanted to figure out a way to generate income. He did want to professionalize this somehow because he was always trying to figure out a way to get money and to support his life. And I like that Rockefeller, when they asked him for a large sum of money, in his wisdom, he was like, yeah, I think money's gonna louse this thing up. And he was the beginning of our spiritual foundation, as far as I'm concerned, because he saw right away that this thing could get screwed up with money. And also, most of you probably know that are on this thing, but not very many people know that the hold on, it's coming to me. The article in the first article that really pushed AA out. What's that one, Lara? The very first article that really put AA out on
Post.
Yeah,
Alexander?
yeah. The guy that came, the reporter. There we go. It's coming to me. I'm still waking up from a nap. The reporter that came to see Alcoholics Anonymous was a reporter for figuring out scams. He didn't come here wherever he went. New York, I'm sure it was what, I don't know exactly where he went. He didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous in the spirit of, oh, let's check out this beautiful thing and write something nice about it. No, he was coming to find out what the scam was, and the Ponzi scam, or whatever the money scam was. And if there had been money involved professionally somehow in any way, fashion, or form, that article would have looked way different. And he walked away surprised at what he found in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's there, man, that was a huge moment for Alcoholics Anonymous, that article, even though it's attraction rather than promotion. But that article showed that we were a real thing. We're a real movement. We were trying to help people. We weren't trying to get people's money. And if Bill had opened up that hospital or whatever he was trying to do along with all of this, it probably would have just AA would have destroyed itself. And we're so lucky that these traditions were born out of so much turmoil. I'm glad I didn't have to be part of it, because even today I can't stand most meetings, business meetings, and especially when it comes to talking about money and how it's going to be spent and all that. But also, it's kind of an interesting subject in the sense of I know some of you that have been around here a while have probably had the same experience as me, that I've known many new alcoholics that want to be counselors, who want to be alcoholic counselors at treatment centers. So at that point, you're breaking your anonymity as soon as you take the job, because they want you to be in AA. And also, almost every single one of them that I know stopped going to meetings because of their job, because they were doing this, getting paid for it, around newcomers all day long, and felt that there was no need for them to go to meetings and be part of AA anymore. I even have one of my closest friends who hasn't been to a meeting in 20 years, which is disappointing to me, of course, because I really believe in sponsorship and, you know, even just the group level service work, you know, the coffee maker, the cleanup, all that stuff. But and I'm also grateful for Intergroup, that Intergroup runs. I know it's been tough since COVID, and meetings have lowered in attendance, and trying to encourage people to put a little more in the basket, because at one point we made a push for $1 to $2. And now it seems we're in that position again where it should be more like $2 to $4 instead. And we don't give up our money very easily. So that's a problem. But I've been trying to throw in a $5 every time I go to them even now. And even though it still feels like a lot, I know that's what I'm supposed to do. And I've seen at halls, sometimes I see these flyers where people are willing to take your 4-step for $100, you know.
Asking for a friend where?
Or friend, like it. And it's some therapist or something trying to drum up some business. Now they got this, there's just always so much stuff that we're dealing with the trying to separate professionalism and keep it all. Luckily, I've never had the desire to go into any of these fields. It just never felt right for me. And it's tough because for fun and for free was what I was always told. And I can't keep it if I don't give it away. And if I'm getting paid for giving it away, it's not for fun and for free. And I don't get the spiritual results of that. So I don't know if this is a hard one to talk about, but in rereading the material, man, what they went through to figure out some balance. I was reading the story about the retired fireman who the clubhouse, they realized they needed somebody to sweep up, kick the drunks out, the disorderly drunks out, and maintain the clubhouse. And they figured since he was retired, he basically could do it for free. And they went and talked to him about it and offered him a room to stay in and just said, you can stay in the room, but you got to take care of the clubhouse 7 days a week. And he rightfully said, no, I'm not going to do this unless you're paying me. And they negotiated him down to quite a bit less than somebody should have got paid, but they did come up with an agreement. And for him to maintain the clubhouse, and then the Alano clubs, that there's a lot of lines that are just so close to each other. And some of us are familiar with the whole EDI debacle and money and trying to turn it into a Alano club and took money from a treatment center. And I mean, that whole situation, that's probably why EDI doesn't really exist anymore. And so I'm kind of rambling. I always keep telling myself I want to come to these meetings because I love hearing from you guys and what you've learned along the way as your experience, but also from studying the traditions and trying to do the best you can to be an example of the traditions, because that's the kind of person I want to be. I'm always striving for that. So I think that's all I've got, Lara. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks for answering the last minute call.
Yeah.
Well, I got my coffee.
Good job. Anita, would you like to go?
Okay. My name's Anita and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
Hey,
Anita.
So one of my favorite things about this tradition is Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. And when I'm trying to get someone into a service position and they say, oh, I can't, I always say that we should remain forever non-professional and we ought not be organized. So you clearly are eligible and capable of doing this service position.
Right.
So just a little trick. And I want to say hi to Cheryl. S. She's from my home group, and I sent her a text this morning. So thank you, Cheryl. This is also the most uncomfortable tradition for me because I am a special worker. So whenever the topic comes up at a board meeting talking about our wages, it's just one of those just kill me now moments. And I try to step out of the room so that people can talk freely. Anyways, so also tradition 8, the bottom of page 168, it does sort of describe a day at the office for Lara and I, in that we answered the phone dozens of times, listened to 20 wailing wives, arranged hospitalization, got sponsorship for 10 newcomers, was gently diplomatic with the irate drunk who complained about the job she was doing. And it follows up with, then such a person could surely not be called a professional AA. And it says that we're just making 12-step calls possible. We're not actually participating in the 12-step call. And then I wanted to wrap it up that with some of our trusted servants, when a 12-step call comes in, sometimes you go through the list, and then sometimes I sort of go to my private list because I feel like we've got 20 minutes to get the message of AA to this person. And I can't do it. I can't, leave work right now and go do it. So one of my favorite people to call is Scott's dad. And recently, about 6 months ago, Glenn took the call, and it was a Friday, and Glenn said, I'll take him to a meeting today. We'll go to meetings Saturday. We'll go to meetings Sunday. And Glenn called every day and gave me a little update.
Wow.
So we can really, if we need to hustle to get help to someone quickly, Lara and I, with people like Glenn, we can get that done. And so you're not paying for us to do 12-step work. Maybe on our own, I know Lara does a ton of that as an AA member. I also liked, Scott, you brought up some material that I haven't thought about in so long, or the story, the Rockefeller story. I haven't thought about that story, I feel like, in years. And that was a very important moment in our history. And then I think the reporter was Jack Alexander, and we do have a pamphlet on that. Again, I haven't read his article in years, and I made a note so I can get more familiar with it. So I'm really glad I tuned in tonight, because we're never too, there's so much more to learn. And I feel like I've learned so much in the short time that I've been here tonight. Anyways, welcome back, Lara. That's enough out of me.
Oh, thank you. I can't read the names.
Oh, I'm sorry. But can I go next?
Oh,
Yeah.
Lara.
My name's Lara. I'm an alcoholic. And so I too am a special worker, and I just got back from a conference comprised solely of special workers, which was amazing. And actually, there were some special workers there that weren't paid. They're office managers, because their offices, I don't know, they're just in a position of not being able to pay the office managers, which I found absolutely amazing that anybody would be willing to do this job for free. So that was amazing to me. They should never have to do that. But some offices aren't as in such a good position. I know that the Everett Central office is operated by volunteers, and actually our satellite office, the South End bookstore, they don't have a phone, and they don't handle 12-step calls, and and they don't have committees, and they don't have a lot of things, but they are a bookstore, and that is operated solely by volunteers. And without Jim H. down there, being a retired person who does not want to get paid, I don't know that we would have that bookstore. So we are grateful to our tireless volunteers. And I have come to realize that AA servants are my very most favorite people in the whole world. So, Language of the Heart talks, was the first essay that Bill W. wrote about Tradition 8, and all the traditions first came out in the Grapevine, and you can find all the Bill's Grapevine writings in the book Language of the Heart. And just reading a few paragraphs at the end of this, it says, we are beginning to see that our few paid workers are performing only those service tasks that our volunteers cannot consistently handle. Primarily, these folks are not doing 12-step work. They are just making more and better 12-step work possible. Secretaries at their desks are valuable points of contact, information, and public relations. This is what they are paid for and nothing else. They help carry the good news of AA to the outside world and bring our prospects face to face with us. That's not AA therapy. It's just a lot of very necessary but often thankless work. So, where needed, let's revise our attitude toward those who labor at our special services. Let us treat them as AA associates and not as hired help. Let's recompense them fairly, and above all, let's absolve them from the label of professionalism. Let us also distinguish clearly between organizing the AA movement and setting up in a reasonably businesslike manner its few essential services of contact and propagation. Once we do that, all will be well. The million or so fellow alcoholics who are still sick will then continue to get the break we 60,000 AAs have already had. Let's give our service desks the hand they so well deserve. Okay. Just a story that I really enjoy. I was on the plane on the way home from this conference this weekend. Somebody asked me, so what do you do? And I tell them I'm an office manager, and then it gets a little, and if there's another question, I say, well, I'm an office manager in the Seattle area that for Alcoholics Anonymous and central office. And he said, well, is that like funded through United Way? And I laughed and I said, no, we are self-supporting through our own contributions. We cannot accept donations from anywhere other than AA members or contributions from anywhere from AA members. And his like jaw dropped. He says, wow, that's amazing. And I said, and then I cited the John D. Rockefeller dinner, back in 1941 or whenever it was, and that, well, it wasn't our idea, but it's what we're doing. And it has, and then I went on to say that we have a vow of poverty, right? That because, well, I did say alcoholics, the reason, spiritually speaking, is that alcoholics have always had their hand out, and it was decided long ago that we needed to become self-supporting through our own contributions, and that we no longer needed to have our hand out to outside entities, and that we could be accountable to ourselves for ourselves. And how great is that? So that was a great experience with somebody who was completely oblivious to how Alcoholics Anonymous is funded and how our offices run. But it is true, when the picnic buttons went from $5 to $10 this year, there was a lot of grumbling. Anyway, it's like, well, I'm not, that's too much money. I can't spend $10. It's like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure you spent $10 on a latte just a couple of days ago.
And the hot dogs were great.
Oh, and the hot dogs were delicious, and probably, we didn't end up making a whole bunch more money by including a hot dog, but nonetheless, it's neither here nor there. It is interesting to me that when things go up, there's a bunch of grumbling about it. I don't like it either. I don't like going to the grocery store and spending $100 on, a bag and a half of groceries. Everything's going up, and you know, it was, before I got hired to work as a special worker, I was on the other end. I was on the other end of being the common AA member that Intergroup was always asking money for, too, right? And I remember, but I was blessed with being in home groups that had strong, like Al R, strong advocates for our intergroup. And so it didn't ever come across as um, begging necessarily. It was always presented in, well, this is essential service, and intergroup needs money. Intergroup needs money. Intergroup needs money. Intergroup needs money. It's kind of a broken record that I've heard over the course of my sobriety, and it wasn't really until I got this job that I realized, of course, intergroup needs money all the time, because we have rent to pay every month, and we have wages to pay every month, and we have services that we provide for our service committees every month, and we have stuff that happens every month, just like GSO, right? Which is different than district or area in a sense. It's just a little bit different, and so. So I'm will be forever grateful for this job, showing me how the intricacies of carrying the message to the alcoholic who still suffers, helping groups carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers, helping our committees reach out to be the face of Alcoholics Anonymous, to just like, later or next month, we're going to take a professional to lunch, bring your medical specifically, bring a medical professional to lunch, and we're going to have an event here on the 21st of September, and I just think that's just such important work, especially in this day and age where 12-step facilitated recovery has sort of taken a backseat to medical facilitated recovery, or and I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm just saying that it's even more important in this day and age to educate people, especially medical professionals, about what AA is and what AA isn't, and what our success is here. So anyway, super grateful to be sober and be a special worker.
Good job. Thank you. Thanks. And Steve, such a cool name. Did you want to share?
Well, thank you. I'm Steve R. and I are an alcoholic. And man, it is going to be tough to add anything to what's been said tonight. You guys are very amazing, and it's that gives me warm and fuzzies that Alcoholics Anonymous is in good hands. So when I see people in groups like this trying to study the traditions and trying to study concepts, so we make a better program for us, because we are not professional. Now I am a professional. I'm a professional bad money arranger. I'm bad at organizing my shit, and I've got some professionalism that goes the other way. So I think they wrote this chapter for a guy like me. I really we read this here in the meeting the other day, and this sentence just always just reaches me, and it's so basic to say that every time we have tried professionalism at our 12-step, the result has been exactly the same. Our single purpose has been defeated. And I really, as I've been around longer, I have watched people try to run the show, try to be the person, try to be the, to have the power. And that just doesn't work with us. So and because I know as special worker, a couple of them actually, and these past few years have been so eye-opening to what it happens on this level, at the level of what goes on in the intergroup and other service, structures that Alcoholics Anonymous has. And so I'm kind of in awe, and I am so grateful that we went through the hard times to figure this stuff out. And I too, just like it's been said a couple times tonight, I used to be a guy that just put money in a basket, not really knowing where it was going. I just knew that the meetings were there and I was there for sobriety, and then selfish me, just, do what I do. But now I am so appreciative of the structure, and just like anything, out of desperation we find our way, because that's what alcoholics do. And it was the desperation of bad finances, of good people being in there to say, hey, you guys are not the guy that should be in charge of, we shouldn't be giving you money, because if you can't create it by yourself, you're probably not gonna last. So being self-supporting, having all of this out there for us as alcoholics, because we are the common problem and we are the common solution. So I believe that I am grateful. I am so amazingly grateful to our service structure. And I love the professional. I love the non-professional. It takes a village, right? Something like that. Isn't that what they say? Takes a group of drunks is what it takes. Woo-hoo, done.
Thanks, Steve. And Cindy?
Oh, so
You're auditioning for that deer in the headlights?
I'm Cindy, I'm an alcoholic,
Hi, Cindy.
and I've learned a lot tonight as well. And one of the biggest experiences in my life is answering the phones for these two with me. I would never do that. I would never do that. It's scary. And so many times I can say, oh, could you hold for a second? And then what should I do next? And the powerful help that both you guys give me, and then to be able to offer someone and go down the list and have someone out there say, yes, I'll put my day aside. Absolutely, I'll talk to somebody who needs help, is like one of the most profound experiences in my life. Yeah.
So that's Alcoholics Anonymous.
That's Alcoholics Anonymous.
And Sharon, welcome to our group. Thank you for coming. That's an invitation to share if you wanted to.
No, Collins alcoholic. I always have a little trouble finding the mute button. I don't know why. I guess it's my age. I'm getting older now. Considerably older. I don't like admitting it, but I'm still here. So it's already been kind of mentioned, but there are two traditions that are really a little more difficult to explain, and they're the ones people do not want to hear about most of the time, and that's tradition 8 and tradition 9. And so what I do, and I'm really grateful because it was also mentioned, from 1935 to 1945, all that information that was gathered, all those different rules, everything that came from all those different clubs of correspondence, and they put it together and came up with the traditions. And I got to tell you, for me, if we didn't have the traditions, that means for me, I would go back out and to die. I would die. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. So I really believe traditions are extremely important, maybe even a little more important sometimes than steps. I don't know, but they are important. So, but I love hearing the stories. I knew of one special worker here that I knew many years ago, Anita, but it's also nice. I didn't realize Lara was involved. So it's nice to hear some of these stories, like that one on the airplane. It's fun to listen to some of that. I haven't heard those kind of stories down here. So anyway, Bill Wilson, there's a part, what I do is I do take the sponsee through the traditions on an individual basis too. And I go through and I take a look at the first part of the non-professional, and I explain to them that, in fact, Bill Wilson talked about this, and he says that it's talking about it's already been mentioned too, the concept of remaining non-professional falls from under the same reasoning given for tradition 7. Bill quickly learned money interferes with spirituality. Stop and think about it. There is almost no recovery from alcoholism that has ever been brought by the world's best professionals, whether medical or religious. So we will never have a professional class. So I explain that. I talk about that first, but then I get involved and give them the examples of who are, those who give freely are the ones, we're not paid, but I go through a little bit and explain who they are. So I talk about the home group. I talk about the district. I talk about the area. I talk about the general service office. I talk about the conference where people come in April and they are giving of their time. You have these conference committees, you have these trustees committees, and they're given freely of their time. So they're non-professionals. But then I love the part where it gets involved and they talk about earlier on when we came about, we had volunteers that did some of the work, but let's see if I can find this section I was just reading about. It says, again, we know that our 12-step work should never be paid for, but we learned through history, and that's what we're talking about, that the first AA groups tried to enlist volunteers for some groups, for some jobs that AA members were not willing or qualified to do. So service centers began employing special workers. We also went through a period of where we were a little tight with money and we did not believe we should pay them what they were due, but eventually we got to the place where your special workers are paid as much as they are in another, like office manager. If you're in another organization or whatever, a job, hopefully, and I believe it's true, and I could be corrected here, but our office manager should be of equal pay. We give them, because they're doing a lot of the work that the non-professionals are not doing, us that are giving away. And we need these workers. We definitely need these workers. There was something else I read too. You mentioned it already in Language of the Heart. They talked about it too. It says, this is something else. It says, I think it's important to remember that we cannot do the work of carrying the message to the suffering alcoholic. Again, we're talking about this. If we don't have some paid people in our various service centers, including the general service office. So I've also take my sponsees through and show them the general service office chart of the people that are paid. And these are the special workers. And I'm not sure, but I think at one time my sponsor told me there are about 135 paid positions in the general service office. I could be mistaken, but there's a lot. And so we do need money. I need to participate in giving more money. But I want to read one other thing. And this is something I do explain to people why. It says, our paid workers are performing only those services that volunteers cannot or will not handle. So I explained to them, this is why we do this. Tons of books and literature per month that do not package and channel themselves all over the world. Sacks of letters on every conceivable AA problem, actually, ranging from a lonely heart Eskimo to the growing pains of thousands of groups must be answered by people who know. Right contacts with the world outside have to be maintained. AA's lifelines have to be tended. So we hire AA staff members. We pay them well and they earn what they get. They are professional secretaries, but they certainly are not professional AAs. So for me, that's really kind of some good information. So I'm really grateful for the program Alcoholics Anonymous. I am grateful that my sponsor at the time I was going through the steps, she absolutely insisted, and at the time I didn't want to do this, and I think a lot of us come from those places, but we answered phones at Seattle Intergroup once a month. And when I showed up for that, my sponsor said, you go to the back room. And in that back room is we did a tradition at that same time. So not only did I do the steps, but I went through the traditions at the same time once a month. You also reminded me that when you talk about that tall 12-step call list, I think I remember too, Lynette said, okay, well, you get through the steps, and we did. Then you will go down and you will put your name on that 12-step phone list at Seattle Intergroup. So that's what we did. Now that's not a paid position, but that's, the service that we give freely away. So I had an opportunity to do that. I had an opportunity to do a couple 12-step calls, and we don't get to do that very often anymore, but down here, we don't really have it. So I kind of miss that. And I'm glad to hear you still have that 12-step call list. I like it. So it's nice to be here. It's nice to see some familiar faces. It's been a while, and I'm really enjoying this. And I could see, probably ought not to call out names, but I'm going to anyway. I sure remember when Scotty was brought into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's so great to see you up here talking about the traditions. One of our young people. I love it. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. We've got a jet going overhead for a second, so
I'm not so young anymore, Sharon.
You caught up with
None
me,
of us
huh?
are.
and Sherry, welcome to our meeting. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. My name is Sherry, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm so glad I'm here tonight. I'm a little bit tired. I've been up since 2:30. I had to come from Ocean Shores to Seattle to get a little bit of surgery on my head, skin cancer. But I'm here, and I'm glad I'm here. Sharon is my sponsor, and she is a big tradition person. And when my first sponsor that I had, we went through the steps, and we never really touched the traditions at all. So I was I'll be coming up on 7 years in January. So at the beginning, I was kind of like, oh, I don't care about the traditions. They're boring, blah, blah, blah. And so when I got Sharon as my sponsor, we started getting she was teaching me how important they really are. And so we're going through those, at this point. We went through them briefly at one time. Now we're going through them in more detail, and she's really good. In fact, some of the stuff she was reading, I was reading right along. So anyway, so I'm trying to pass that on to my sponsees, the importance. And today, when I was on my trip up to Seattle, I was listening to a traditions CD that Sharon had given me. And it was also talking about, the money in the bath.
Oh,
Throw that in the basket. How much did we spend on alcohol when we were drinking? A bottle of wine, how much did that cost? So that really kind of put more in perspective to me, I'm just learning about all the just starting to be an alternate GSR. So this is a whole new chapter of my sobriety. So I'm really excited about it and anxious to learn. So I don't have a whole lot to share at this point, but definitely I'm learning that there is so much more out there and so much behind the scenes, and that GSO really does need the support and the money, that there are a lot of workers there, special workers, and that keep this going. And I'm glad that we've gotten a little bit more organized than what it was when it first started out with Bill and Bob. But yeah, and I'm glad that the Rockefeller was brought up again too. I have a whole handout on that I'm going to pull out and read again. So anyway, I'm just very blessed to have Sharon in my life, and she's a history buff. And I was early in my sobriety. My first sponsor was like, "Well, we've gone through the steps. That's all there is." And I'm like, "What do you mean that's all there is? I want to keep going. I want to learn." And I found Sharon. And so now I found that you never stop learning. As long as you're teachable, there's much more out there to learn. So this is really exciting for me. So I'm really glad I made it tonight. So thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us and sharing with us. And what we have Cheryl.
Hi,
Welcome,
everyone.
Cheryl.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl. I'm alcoholic. I really appreciate this meeting. Thank you for sending me the invite, Anita. I have a lot to learn yet with the traditions. This is one of my weakest points. I went through it with my sponsor, but I need to go to more tradition meetings and studies. So I have really been listening tonight. I don't really have that much to add. I do really appreciate our special workers. Anita is in our home group, as she mentioned, and I really appreciate her wisdom when she shares in our group. Again, I have a lot to learn. I appreciate what I've already heard tonight. I was just gonna say what I've already heard about, my sponsor also told me, how much did I used to spend on, my alcohol, so I don't mind adding to the basket at all, that's nothing compared to what I used to spend. So, on that, I'm just gonna keep on listening, and I appreciate everybody's shares. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank everybody for sharing. And we actually have.
I was gonna ask a question real quick, if it's okay.
I would, yeah, please do. I was just going to say we crosstalk at this meeting, so go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was curious, Lara, if you had any history nuggets on when Seattle Intergroup started and how well did the groups receive the idea of sending money to Intergroup in the beginning?
Well, it started in 1946, and I'm not really sure about that. Maybe Anita might have a better idea. I do know that we've been in the red for the last few months. July actually was better, and August might be better because of the picnic, but we're about $15,000 before July in the hole, for the year. So it's rough. It's rough. It's a rough go. Anita, I don't know historically, how has it been?
I think when I feel like Intergroup was called the Central Committee in the very beginning, and the fellowship enthusiastically supported this Central Committee more so than today. And also,
wasn't it the slot machines that funded the Central Committee?
I can't remember what finally, that was certainly part of it.
One of the groups had slot machines, but you never know. The Central Committee might have had them also.
Actually, the Seattle Alano Club is who had the slot machines, and that is the Central Committee was housed in the same building.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Which is at the Century Ballroom now, which we are going to have an event there in October. It's going to be a vaudeville jamboree. It's going to be an old time 40s event. So that'll be fun at where the Central Committee first began.
So I got a quick intergroup story about Jill, who was the office manager here for a lot of years.
Oh yeah.
This is like when I came into AA 38 years ago, and I happened to live on Mercer Island at the time, and I was in Jill's home group. And so I got to know her well quickly. And a few years later, I was started out as an alternate GSR, and boy, was I feeling good about that. I was feeling special. I was feeling real special. And Jill reminded me that just because I was elected alternate GSR doesn't mean I was qualified for it. But as far as money goes and support, again, this two-part deal on Tradition 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. Really, nobody disagrees with that. And our service centers may employ special workers. Well, are we going to employ them? And here's what she told me. She said, and this was a long time ago, and I'm wondering how appropriate it is today too. She said, ask a home group member. Do they know what their split is? Do they know when the last time they made a contribution? Do they know what the basket's holding approximately now? She said if the home group kept itself informed as a group, boy, the money shows up. And what happened was the group I was with barely paid rent, barely paid coffee and stuff, and contributed zero in the year before I got involved in it. And just by talking about, and I'm talking less than 15 seconds, just by talking about, hey, are we going to support Intergroup? Are we going to support GSO? You know, more money came in. And I think I learned it was a lot of just because I'm not thinking ahead. I was just sitting there, you know, wanting to put my buck in and have 4 cups of coffee. So Jill told me if we did that, you'd be amazed before we were halfway through, you know, halfway through the year. And we were. People stepped up to the plate when they knew there was a reason to step up to the plate. Instead of just hearing they need more money, they need more money. What as a home group, what are we doing as a home group? Anyway, that was helpful to that. Anybody else? Anita's got her hand up.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the tradition, but Cheryl, I think your sponsor sobered up with Sharon 100 years ago. Yeah. So you get extra credit.
Wow, that's great.
Well, you're holding up real good, Sharon. You're holding up real good.
Well, you realize I'm almost 80 years old, Scotty.
Oh, right on. Right on.
Like your parents. Cheryl, who's your sponsor?
Carol L.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well,
I was thinking when Scott was talking and he said he's glad he wasn't part of the original discussions when AA first started. And I thought, I bet you're glad because you'd be about 100 when it, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if I could handle that many resentments at one time. I don't. That's all I kept thinking is fighting and arguing because there's enough of it as it is.
That's true. That's true.
After going to a certain group for several years, they kind of broke me of business meetings for a little while, but that doesn't mean I won't go back. But I got tired of having resentments all the time. So, what was that? Oh, and when you, Lara, when you said Al R, you're talking about Al that used to run Intergroup, or are you talking about the Al that we knew from Old Renton?
Yeah. I went from Old Renton. He was just always very active at the Intergroup office.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't know the initial of the Al that used to also work at Intergroup.
Yeah, I don't remember it either, but it was not LR.
I loved that guy. That guy always had a smile and he always had something nice to say. I don't know too many people like that.
Well, again, thank you all for coming. Please mark your calendar for September 24th, which we'll be looking at Tradition 9, and we've got some special surprises coming up for September 24th.
That's a way to bring them back.
Yeah, I'm glad that I keep, you know, I've been to this before and I keep telling myself to come back, and then a month goes by and I space it out. So you're right, I do need to put it in the calendar.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed hearing from everybody and all the stories. And I love history. You got to make it fun. I make the traditions fun. Is what I try to do with my sponsees. There are great stories out there.
Nice.
Okay, well, we have traditionally closed with the responsibility prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And who is responsible?
I am
And
responsible.
When
Anyone,
anywhere,
just
reaches
help
out for help. I want the hand
always to be
grace to be there.
For that, I am
I
responsible.
am
responsible.
responsible.
Bye,
Good job,
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you
See
so
you
much.
next month.
Bye,
Bye.
Have a
everybody.
good night.
Good
You
night.
too.
Good night.